Anyone who's listened to this podcast, and we thank you for doing so, knows that we are not partisan. We are very frustrated and actually very despairing about our partisan divide. And we are your political port in the storm. It's not easy being politically homeless, but given the state of American division and polarity, what choice do we have? Which makes today's episode very exciting because I am joined by somebody who tested the limits of the partisan bubble, who believes you should think for yourself, make your own decisions, not be hostage to any kind of dogma, ideologically or otherwise. And I'm really pleased that she agreed to come on the show. This is Representative Mesha Mainor. She made big news this past summer as a state legislator in Georgia when she switched from being a Democrat to being a Republican in the 56th district, which also happens to be in Fulton County, the site of a lot of activity concerning one Donald Trump, Fani Wllis, and the like. Representative Mainor, welcome to Dirty Moderate.
Thank you. We need to play the intro music again. That was fun.
Oh, thank you. My brother, who's a songwriter and composer, wrote it. So we keep it.
I loved it.
Oh, thank you. Well, so many podcasts have these depressing theme songs or kind of weird grunge sounds. I'm like, we got to showbiz. My past was in showbiz, so I pride myself on knowing that. But thank you. So let's go right to it. So obviously, anybody that switches parties is going to earn the ire of the party that they left behind, and of course, in an ever increasingly really toxic partisan climate, it's a very hard thing to do. Fundamentally, why do you think, and then we'll go back into some other stuff, but why do you think you had to make this choice?
I think you are spot on with the question. Fundamentally, what is it? What made me just not be able to go on anymore?
Right.
I like to tell people that no party is perfect. Just like people are not perfect, organizations are not perfect.
Mm.
But in politics, you must look at what is fundamental to your beliefs and what is fundamental to the community you represent. For me, that's education.
Mm-hmm.
That's putting people over systems. And that's also putting public safety at the forefront. Now, those are three things that I campaigned on as a Democrat. And those are the same three things that I'm going to campaign on as a Republican. Just because I switched parties, I'm still campaigning for the exact same thing because my constituents haven't changed. I haven't changed. What's different is I did not know that those were ideals that the Democrats didn't believe in.
Mm. Yeah, and as an independent, very sympathetic to your idea that students who are left behind in horrible schools should have a choice. I mean, I don't know why this is even controversial given the state of American education. So I know you were for that. I know you had concerns about, defunding the police and crime and things that seem so silly that the Democrats kind of put themselves in a tangle about and then have to play defense the whole time. But it is very interesting, because obviously race factors so much into this and it's such a charged issue for so many people. And, I always am fascinated by the notion. And again, I'm not, I don't have enough experience talking to enough people who go from Democrat to the Republican Party. But, the Republican Party was the party of Lincoln. And the party has switched. Obviously, it hasn't been that for a while. But things like public safety and immigration and these things get tangled into all the kind of identity politics and social issues. And they kind of put you in a cul-de-sac, don't they? Right? Because the arguments, and I've read a lot about this because I followed this intensely, is, you're the first Black woman to switch, right? Are you the only Black Republican in the House in Georgia? Is that right? Right.
Yes.
And this to many people, and I am not going to wade into it because I am not Black, but is just like the greatest heresy you can commit. Right? you have violated your oath. You're not a human being. You're not a Black woman. How could this happen? The end of the world is here. Let's drop the frogs. The apocalypse is upon us, which I find just from the outset so silly. I mean, so silly. We as human beings too, and this is where my question is going, are so much more than our race or our gender. I mean, we're complex, psychological, deep, flawed, right? Imperfect, the way you describe parties, and you would think that, every time that something happens that challenges any orthodoxy, you're automatically under suspicion, right? So let's go back, is where I'm going with this. You were elected twice as a Democrat, right? 2 terms,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're in the 56th district. This is a district that went almost 80% for Joe Biden, right? Outside it, or in Atlanta, and you we're in the Democratic Party trying to work on pieces of legislation. And is that where the roadblocks started coming up? I mean, you're there and you said, hey, I really want to work on school choice, or I want to, and the party poobahs or whoever they are started to say, whoa, we can't do that. Does that mean, and you're at the local level, that, politics has become so nationalized, so frustrating. Take us through that to the extent you can share it, the kind of like machinations and craziness that was stopping you from just doing what you ran on.
Let's start with, you're absolutely right that being Black and being a Republican has a huge stigma to
Right.
it. And the other,
at least in this century,
right, yes, in this century.
Right.
The other thing in Black culture, there's stigma against being gay.
I know.
There also is stigma against mental illness. And so if there's stigma against mental illness, which is ridiculous, stigma against being gay, ridiculous, stigma against being a Republican, should I say more, ridiculous.
Right.
So let's go back. I was elected and I started my first term in 2021. The first bill that just did not work out between the Republicans and myself was a school choice bill for children with disabilities. I am a physical therapist. I have worked in Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. I work with people with disabilities. And for me to vote against children with disabilities is ridiculous. But that was a stance that the Democrats took. So that was the first issue. Then it was, okay, we're not going to defund the police. My constituents were calling me left and right saying, we don't want to defund the police. Crime is terrible. And it doesn't matter what socioeconomic community you live in downtown Atlanta, crime is rampant no matter where you live. And now here we go, fast forward. This year, there was the prosecutor oversight bill to get rid of rogue prosecutors like Fani Wllis, in my opinion. And
so Fani Wllis, in your opinion, is a rogue prosecutor?
Absolutely. In 2022, before there was any indictment for Donald Trump, I filed a RICO racketeering case against Fani Wllis myself.
The irony, right?
The irony. So I absolutely do believe that she uses her office to her own benefit, and it's not her office, it's the people's office. And so here we are. Fundamentally, there are just some issues that I critically do not believe in. Not saying Republicans get everything right, not saying Democrats get everything right, but fundamentally, these core values of people over systems, public safety, and education, that is, to me, what life is all about. You can't go out and enjoy the world we live in if you don't feel safe. You can't be prosperous and be the best person you can be if you can't read. And lastly, if we're putting systems over people, is it really a republic? So that's where I'm at.
Right. Okay. I want to break a few things down on policy before we get back to Trump and Fani Wllis, because these are the inevitable questions. You're in Fulton County, and I have to know anyway, because you've joined the Republican Party. This whole thing of school choice. Now, let me tell you where I stand on school choice. I was very privileged, and I'm not using that word in that 2020 ridiculous way. Okay. I'm talking about genuinely privileged to be raised by successful parents and to be able, in Miami, where I grew up, to go to private school. And I was given a superb education. That education allowed me to go to both NYU and Brown because I had the skills of critical thinking that a private school of the nature I went to afforded me. many people I grew up with, okay, white and black, did not have that privilege, and they were stuck at the time in bad public schools, woefully underprepared for a lot of things that they've since faced. I am a non-religious person, so I do not support bills that use taxpayer money and violate First Amendment ideals, which I really believe in, because I need to pay for somebody's Baptist education. I don't want to pay for somebody's, I'm Jewish, I don't pay for somebody's Jewish education, Muslim education. Okay, I don't want that. But I do think that the teachers unions and the grip and corruption of the public school system has so hurt kids who are left behind. And many people are, this has been tested years ago, Michigan, Wisconsin, places that have had wonderful experiences with this. What is this bill you were for? Was for children with disabilities. So it was not a religious bill, right? Was it like a charter bill?
So that was the first bill in 2021. It was basically saying if a child with a disability could not get the services they needed in their local school,
right,
they could use state dollars and take that money to another school,
right,
to get their services.
Not necessarily a religious school, just a school. They can go anywhere.
Yes.
Okay. So I ask, and I want you to translate this for me. It's like later, I have to know this. What is the Democratic Party's opposition to this? I understand I've heard the arguments and followed them for years, but in your circle, you're in Georgia. What is it that they were against? I'm trying to understand why that would be controversial. And bravo to you for doing it, because we have to have real conversations about school choice. So I'm sympathetic to you on that too. What's the problem?
I know you. I'm asking myself the same question, but I do have an answer for you.
Okay. I just want to get the insight of someone says to you, Mesha, you're really going too far with it. I mean, it's not like you said, hey, I really want to launch a nuclear war on what's so controversial about this? Anyway.
So a lot of the people that are against this, their children are in private schools, so they have a choice. There are some lawmakers that the local school in their community is not performing. And so guess what? They're using someone else's address to send their child to a better performing school. That's against the law, but that's their choice. That's
the old limousine liberals, right? Well, they are.
Exactly. And so and they will say to me, look, we get it. The problem though is the teachers union in Georgia, the director, she literally every week sends hundreds, if not thousands of people video messages telling them what they are going to do.
Oh,
and so they are beholden to the teachers union and not
it's a cabal. It's like a cabal of people or something, right? Yeah.
Yes. And a lot of times I'm the subject of the videos. We must get Representative Mesha Mainor out of office.
Right.
To the point where people put up $1,000 check.
Wow.
My colleagues saying, we don't care who you are. We want to get rid of Representative Mesha Mainor. Here's $1,000 if you will run against her. Because of school choice.
Okay.
So think about that. Right? Think about that. The person that put the $1,000 check up, he represents suburban Georgia, a suburban area. Mm-hmm. He went to Yale Law School and he has no children.
And he's a white or black Democrat?
He is a white Democrat.
Right. Yeah.
My district, 2%. In some of the schools, 2% of the kids are meeting math proficiency. 3% are meeting reading proficiency. We are in the world of artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. And you can go into Whole Foods and you can check out by waving your hand, over the checkout mm-hmm. area. So if we have people that can't read and can't perform simple math, Goldman Sachs did a study that said in 10 years, 300 million jobs are going to be lost to artificial intelligence. Those are my constituents. And it's because the public school is not affording them an opportunity to learn to read, to have these critical thinking skills that you just mentioned earlier.
Right. And I mean, we all know that, Washington's awash in corruption, right? And that, the size of the federal Leviathan is invited. I was talking about this with my progressive friend last night. I said, you're championing this enormous growth of government, and then you're complaining about all the corruption. I said, well, why do you think there's corruption comes with more government, more agencies, more issues, more lobbying. In your capacity and in your experience, it sounds like, and forgive me if I'm being completely cynical, that the Democrats down there are basically just bought off by the defund the police activists and the teachers unions. And so it doesn't really matter if they believe it or not. That's where their bread is buttered. Is that a fair statement?
That is a fair statement. I think a lot of,
I don't mean illegally. I just mean they're getting their contributions and they're right. They're right.
Yes, I agree with you. And I can agree with you because I talk to Democrats that believe the exact same way I believe.
Right.
They do not agree with what the party is doing, but no one wants to get beat up, right? And so they're willing to just go along with the get along, even though it's something that they don't believe in. They are scared of retribution. They are scared of what people will do in their community. I have Democrats that try to come to my community and tell my constituents that I'm a terrible person. And normally they get kicked out of my community when they do that.
Right. I mean, I think it's interesting. I saw an interview you did on CNN where you said, the only thing different is the alphabet before my name. You're still fighting for the issues that you fight for. But which leads me to something. I have, as an independent, been very, very tough on, and I believe rightfully so, on, I believe, the scourge that is Trumpism. Put Fani Wllis aside for a second. As a never Trumper, I care first and foremost about democracy, and I hate what has happened. I hate what he's done, but I hate what he's done to the Republican Party, because we only have two parties. I wish we had more. You're now in the Republican Party. I believe we need a center-right, limited government party in this country that gives people choices on all these things, that in the best sense, right, believes everyone should have opportunity, and believes, let's say with school choice, that more market forces might be a good idea, as well as public education, on identity politics, that everyone should be equal regardless of race. Things should be maybe focused on class. There's a lot of ways to do this, but there is no getting around the fact, and I am very supportive of what you did. I want to preface by saying that, because I think it takes a lot of courage and chutzpah and guts, and I hope your constituents feel that way. But the Republican Party has become the party of Trump, and there is a lot of, hatred and racism and bad ideas, and just a fundamental disrespect for the rule of law. I know you're at the local level. You do not speak for the whole Republican Party. It's important the Republican Party has voices that are not just diverse in ethnicity or race, but in views. How do you reconcile yourself to that?
I'm going to answer that question two different ways.
Sure. I ask it respectfully. It's not meant to be. I just don't know, meaning, because you could be an independent too. But anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
Can't be an independent the way the system is set up in Georgia, at least.
Okay.
It would be impossible.
I understand. You need too many signatures and bureaucracy. Okay. That's fair.
Yes, but that goes back to the fundamental question. I still believe in some fundamental core issues that the Republican Party supports.
Okay.
The first piece to that is, this is what I tell my constituents. Okay. Right now, we can be extremely upset with Donald Trump and January 6th.
Yes.
Or we can be extremely concerned that only 2% of the kids are meeting math proficiency and 3% are meeting reading proficiency.
Right.
Which one is really kitchen table topic, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Trump, January 6th, with Democrats, that is an emotion. And I'm not saying it's a bad emotion or a good emotion. I think people should have whatever emotions that they want to have.
You're pro-emotion. You're on the record.
Yes, I am pro-emotion.
Okay.
But I do think that if only 2% and 3% can read, that is a crisis. And Donald Trump is not the Black community's crisis. It is the media's crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of the answer. The other answer is I absolutely am not speaking for every Black person,
No.
not speaking for every woman.
No.
I was never speaking for every Democrat, and now I'm not speaking for every Republican. But what's different is what I have noticed in Georgia at the Capitol. If you do not vote with leadership, with the Republican Party, you are not chastised and they are not looking for opposition to run against you. The school choice bill would be for the prime example. There were Republicans that did not vote for the school choice bill, and this was a bill backed by the governor, who's a Republican.
Yeah.
So
I think Kemp's doing a good job down there.
I do too. I absolutely love working with Governor Kemp. And then, so the next piece to your question is, I think Georgia's just dramatically different. We have leadership that is not necessarily pro anybody.
Right.
Georgia leadership is pro people. And that's what is great about being a Republican in Georgia.
Right. I mean, I think one of the things that has gotten lost in our politics, and the Democrats have suffered from, because they've nationalized everything, in the sense that, especially during the Obama years, they became such, and I voted for Barack Obama twice, but they became such Obama obsessives to the point, and he didn't care about the Democratic Party, he only cared, he didn't. I mean, and the Democrats lost state houses and all that, they were hollowed out, and gerrymandering is very bad, but they lost the Senate and Congress. I'm not rehashing all that for this point. I'm saying that what people have lost sight of, and I always tell my friends on the left, right, middle, nowhere, that if you really want to get involved at the school board or the local level. Stop ignoring, right, the mechanisms of our government. You're in Georgia's 56th. You've made, mental health, domestic violence, the environment priorities of yours, crime, obviously school choice. What did Tip O'Neill, the great House Speaker from Massachusetts, always say? All politics is local. And we've lost some of that in our politics in a big way. And I think that being a state legislator, right? I know, makes you closer to the people than anybody else, because you're not in Washington, you're in Atlanta, right? I presume you live in Fulton, I guess. But, I wonder if that informs the way that you can engage your constituents regardless of party label. Does that make sense? I would assume it probably does give you not an immunity, but it's not, you didn't leave the Democratic Party on a 50-50 Senate in Washington and everyone hates you, and that, people still hate you for the wrong reasons, and it's not right. But, even though your district is real blue, if they think you're delivering, theoretically, they can get past the party label. I don't know if they can. The country is tainted by partisanship. But what say you?
So my job is to not convince my constituents to be a Republican.
No.
Not the Republican cheerleader.
Right.
But what will happen in the general election is when they get to State House District 56, they're going to see an incumbent named Mesha Mainor, who they know that every single time they call her office, she responds nicely with great customer service. They know that I bring these underserved communities to the forefront. These are communities that have never gotten any attention. I bring attention to the community because it needs attention. People need to know what's going on. But let me tell you what another problem, though, is. A lot of people are just not engaged in government. People don't know what the school board member does. People don't know what a city council member does.
No.
People don't know what a state representative does. I have people that have been volunteers for the Democrats for 40, 50 years. I kid you not, because I have a volunteer that's in his 80s.
Mm-hmm.
When I first ran, he said, "Do you know I never knew what a state representative did?" And so it's my job to teach my constituents what they should be expecting from me and what they should be expecting from other people. And as a Republican,
right.
I am saying this is what me as a Republican, I am supposed to give you.
Mm-hmm.
And as a Democrat, the Democrats were trying to sabotage all those things that I was trying to give you. I want to give you another example.
Sure.
I passed a bill this past session to allow HBCUs to combine their campuses. So the Atlanta University Center is in my district: Morehouse, Morris Brown, Spelman, Clark, Atlanta.
Morehouse, yeah.
If a crime was happening on Morris Brown's campus, then a police officer on Spelman's campus could not handle the crime because it's different jurisdictions. Mm-hmm. Every single college president signed a letter to the state saying, please pass this bill for us. They had been trying to get this bill passed, I kid you not, for 15 years. 15 years they've been trying to get this bill passed with Democrats. I got the bill passed, and the Democrats tried to sabotage the bill.
Why? I mean, I know you know, but explain to us why. I mean, what's the opposition to this? I'm trying to. These things are like, it's almost like it's just like Alfred Hitchcock Presents or The Twilight Zone or something. What's wrong? I'm seriously. I know you're shaking your head, but tell us.
Well, one, they lied. They stood up during the debates and said, you know, during parliamentary inquiries, isn't it true that the campuses do not want this? And this is just something that Representative Mainor is doing. That was a complete lie. It was a complete lie. Mm-hmm. And they go out into the community. And what's unfortunate is, since underserved people, low socioeconomic status people with poor education, they believe lies if you tell them, because people are assumed to be telling the truth.
Right.
And so, you know, I could go on and on with several other examples, but every single thing that I try to do for my community, the Democrats tried to sabotage it.
Right. Okay, so I want to go to two things, and they're interrelated, but I want to note them both. To your point about what are the priorities, as we're going to get into Fani Wllis and Donald Trump. I last night was having dinner with my progressive friend who is a public school teacher in Los Angeles, who is teaching, I think, almost entirely Black and brown kids in the downtown area. Okay, very poor area. He's a saint. He's just a great guy. He's changing these kids' lives. He really is. It sounds like a cliche, but he's doing the work, and he's giving them a shot, because they're not starting at the same place I started at, and that's the truth. Or maybe your constituents. It's just not. It's not. We're not in the same place. But he said, his aunt said, "Wow, you get a chance to teach them about all these Trump indictments and democracy." And he said, and remember, he's not a Republican. He said, I don't want to name people, but he said, Aunt so and so, that these kids are struggling to get by and figure out how to get through day to day in their families and learn and be competent in critical thinking and studying. They don't care or about any of that, right? They care about issues closest to them. They don't even have the luxury to talk about Jack Smith's indictment because they don't know what that is.
Exactly.
And it's not relevant to them. So I take your point on that. And it was just made to me at dinner last night. Isn't that funny that we're having this conversation? So I thought that was that. But you are a representative and a good one, and you've been elected now by the people. There is no way around the fact that the former president of the United States is out on bail in 4 jurisdictions. Okay? He's innocent until proven guilty. I may not like him, won't vote for him, but he deserves everyone, there's a court of law. Okay. Nothing scares me more than mouth frothing leftists who are ready to lock a guy up where they have if you can't just throw people in jail because you don't like them. Imagine if it were on the other foot, but God forbid we point out the inconsistencies, right? Apart before the Fani Wllis thing, I mean, Donald Trump's going to be the Republican nominee. He just is. Okay. He's not going to be in jail. There'll be delays. There'll be stuff. I mean, I think of 91 felony counts, he'll probably be convicted on something. And he's done, in my opinion, a lot of harm. But you're now a Republican. That doesn't mean you have to support him. There's other candidates running right now. I loved Nikki Haley in the debate. I loved Chris Christie because I like that they have a different voice. I think Asa Hutchinson's a decent guy, but he just doesn't have it. I think Ramaswamy's a clown. Mike Pence is so pious and pompous to me. What do you say about the current state of the Republican race? Because you are a Republican and you are serving, and I think this is a valid question. would you support Donald Trump? You voted for Joe Biden in 2020, I'm assuming, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now it'll be a rematch. Would you think you could conceivably, I'm asking without judgment, you would conceivably vote for Donald Trump?
If Donald Trump were the nominee, I would support the party, just the way I voted for Biden before and did not like many things.
You weren't on board with a lot of stuff anyway.
Correct. But I am, at the end of the day, I'm going to be, as an elected official, I'm going to be loyal to the nomination. And let me tell you why. If there is a majority decision of people, that means there are people in the world that support whomever the nominee is. So there are hundreds of thousands of people that support Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah.
And whether you agree with Donald Trump or not, in my opinion, those people's opinions are important.
Oh, yeah. He got 74 million votes last time. I'm not saying their votes are. We have a whole country of people that, what was that, 47% or whatever he got that supported him, right? I don't believe in writing off the country. But given that I guess it speaks to something else, which is kind of a sub-question to this. You ran as a Democrat. You were a Democrat. Your issues sound very mainstream to me. Obviously, I wouldn't ask you about everything else, but clearly you're pro-LGBT, which is great. I'm gay, so I love you. There's no reason you shouldn't be. I don't care who you are. That's ridiculous. A lot of the Republican Party has been hostile, at least to the trans issue. Are you pro-choice? Would you say you're pro-choice on abortion?
So I am pro-choice. It's my choice to be pro-life or pro-choice. I do want to tell a story, though.
Sure. I want to hear a story, but I want to ask this, and then I want to hear a story. It's not as if you woke up one day never thinking about things that you were wrestling with. Maybe there were things in Biden's platform you didn't like, and maybe that began a kind of subconscious shift for you. Because even though, like you said, you did change from D to R, but it's not like you seem like a sort of moderate mainstream person. You could be in either party, but the R has welcomed you more. But you haven't changed like your other convictions. So what I'm saying is, as an independent, I'm going to vote for Biden because I don't think I have a choice. It's not who I want. Okay, he's too old and all that. I think he's done a good job, but that's separate. I don't want Trump. I don't want them. If it was Brian Kemp or Nikki Haley, that's a different story. Okay, but it's not going to be them. So you didn't fundamentally shift your worldview. Maybe your worldview was shifted by what you saw. So I do want to hear your story. But then to say that you'd support Donald Trump, it just doesn't seem like it aligns with what you have been fighting for. I could be wrong. It's okay. I'm wrong a lot.
I don't agree with everything that Donald Trump says or does.
Right.
But when it comes to, when Donald Trump was in office, it was the first time millions of dollars were going to the historically black colleges and universities. He supports school choice. So I really have to look at, how do we uplift the community that I serve? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter anything that Donald Trump says, as long as he is supporting, uplifting my community in those ways, then I support that. Right now, the Democrats do not support that. It's almost like just enslaving Black people in 2023. Black people are enslaved in Fulton County, in many communities, and I don't support it. Fundamentally, I do not support it. It's sad to me. It brings tears to my heart. It bothers me so much. But I want to tell you this story. Yes, I went to Orlando to my first quote unquote Republican conference.
Okay.
And it was an outing where you eat, and there were lots of people I could have sat with. I didn't know anybody, right? I might have even been the only Black person there. So I'm letting my spirit lead me. And I'm about to go to one table. My spirit says, no, don't go to that table. So I end up at a table with, lo and behold, the director of an organization called the Human Coalition. The Human Coalition is a life coalition.
I'm sorry, I lost you. It's a what coalition? Sorry?
A pro-life organization.
Okay.
And this was really, really interesting. So their biggest competitor is Planned Parenthood.
Right.
So on social media, if someone is looking for an abortion, it's a 50-50 chance they're going to hit a Human Coalition ad or a Planned Parenthood ad. Imagine a young lady in my district can't read,
Mm-hmm.
low prospects. She needs an abortion. She's
Mm-hmm.
in a dire situation.
Yes.
She clicks on the Planned Parenthood. She's going to get an abortion and she is still in dire need. She doesn't have a baby, but she is still in a dire need.
Mm-hmm.
If she clicks on the Human Coalition ad, immediately people are going to say, do you have stable housing? Do you need housing? Do you have mental health support? Did you complete high school? Do you want to get your GED? She is flooded with resources. So many resources that she realizes, oh my goodness, I can have the baby. So she has the baby. And she's no longer in a dire need.
Okay.
And so I think that the Black population is decreasing. Hispanics and Asians are surpassing the Black population.
Mm-hmm.
The Black population represents 39% of all abortions, most likely because they're in dire needs because they can't read. And so I am going to promote the Human Coalition. Why? Not because I'm pro-choice or pro-life. It's because I'm pro-opportunity. And Planned Parenthood does not give people opportunities if they're in a dire need. They give them the option of killing their baby.
Okay. So, okay. I see where you're going with that. I would say that if you were going to be, and I'm not I hate these Orwellian terms, pro-life, but if you were going to say that abortion is not a right of a woman, if one were to say that, which is what many people believe in, the Supreme Court decision overturning Roe sent Dobbs back to the states. The states are free to do what they want. But many of these states have gotten incredibly restrictive about what they do, about, prohibiting, no exceptions for life of the mother, rape, incest, things I think are totally insane.
Okay? I agree.
Completely insane. And so, first of all, I don't think the government has any business telling women what to do in this. I really don't. I think that's a dangerous thing. Yes, I'm showing my libertarian colors, but if you're going to be a leave and limited government, the government does not belong there. So that's number one. But I think the government does belong if we're going to have a society where abortions are less frequent and people are in dire need, to use your words. I understand what the Human Coalition is doing. I'm not familiar with them, but no prenatal care, no federal daycare, no Head Start, no food stamps, no, a lot of the Republican platform that I wish were different is against doing anything to support the culture of life they say they propose or they support. You know what I mean? It's like George Carlin used to say, after that abortion, you're on your own. I mean, you can't be on your own in a society. To the Human Coalition, I give them credit for understanding that. If you want women to not make that decision, though I believe they should have the right, you have to have an infrastructure in place, I believe, nationally. You can't just rely on not-for-profits and organizations, right, to do that. And I think the Republican Party's been derelict there, because if they really believe that, and I don't think they do, it's sort of like take away the right to an abortion. Many, not all Republicans. But then we have no system in place for the woman to carry the baby to term, and what then? She's still poor. But she still can't read, right? I mean, she still has to be on the dole, and then she's kept the baby. What does that do? I mean, you know what I mean? If you're not providing a support system, then you aren't really supporting, they aren't at least, or those who believe this aren't putting forth a culture of life. That's how I see it.
So Georgia's a little different.
Okay. Well, every state does it differently.
Yeah, right. And so in Georgia, we actually have extended benefits for pregnant women. We have extended benefits to education. We fully funded our school system. We have given some of the highest raises to teachers than any other state in the nation. So from my perspective, as a 2-second Republican, I see
Yeah.
Republicans making steps forward.
Right.
There are many different Republicans,
Of
right? And
course.
so it may be baby steps, but they are still steps. And what I don't understand, I definitely believe in women's rights,
Okay.
completely. I believe in human rights.
Sure. Yeah.
I believe everybody should have the right to feel, live, and think however they want to. Remember, I'm pro-emotion.
Yes, I do. You're a
But
pro emotion too. You're pro emotion and you're a 2-second Republican. I like that. You should
yes,
remember that. A 2-second.
but if Democrats are going to be pro-women's choice,
Yeah.
pro-life, why not pro-school choice? Why is
I
it?
agree with pro school. Yes. Well, I think, but I do. The only place I stop short again is the religious aspect. Not be. By the way, what's brilliant about the First Amendment, to the point of religion, is that it protects your right to worship. People, we have more churches and synagogues than anywhere else, or more choice of them, I should say. But the First Amendment also makes you free to be religious, but it makes me free from your religion. So that is a very important thing. That's the Establishment Clause. And I don't find a lot of conservatives who I otherwise might agree with on things get that point. That's like, okay, I understand that's your religious viewpoint, but you can't impose it on people in a secular society. And abortion is largely grown out of church opposition. It's like, I get it, but I don't go to church and it's not their business. And it's in your church. You're free to do whatever you want to do. And that's the rub for me. So I don't want my tax dollars going to anybody's religious education. That should be on them. But I am more than happy to have my tax dollars go to give people who've been not given a chance an iota, a modicum of a shot.
I think this is a valid discussion. Let's unwrap what you just said.
Sure.
Society, we have children. There are some people without children, but they still have to pay their school tax dollars.
Sure.
So there are people that don't care if it's a religious school or not a religious school. They don't understand why they are participating in anybody's education.
Right.
If they don't have children.
Right.
When it comes to Medicare or even Medicaid, healthcare services.
Right.
People are choosing the doctors that they want to go to.
Okay.
And that is you paying your money. You're paying a doctor's salary. It may be a Catholic hospital. Does that mean you no longer want to pay for the Medicaid or Medicare services if they're going to get treatment at the Catholic hospital? I'm just throwing out some different things.
No, but also the Catholic hospitals have not wanted to provide certain medical care for people because it violates their religion. And I don't think that's okay if they're getting tax dollars.
And so
I don't disagree with what you're asking, but I'm saying I have no problem. If I'm sick and the best hospital is a Baptist hospital, that's fine. But what if somebody says, well, Adam's gay and I'm offended and I don't feel comfortable? It's like, no, you took a Hippocratic oath. You didn't swear to the Bible. You also didn't swear to anything but the idea of, I'm the son of a doctor, that you would take care of those in need. I'm not suggesting that's what everybody does, but that's been a problem, right?
I think the Hippocratic oath is the Hippocratic oath, and people should abide by the Hippocratic
oath. Nobody should say, okay. So
yes,
right.
I agree with that.
Okay.
But let's say, I may just be different.
Okay.
If someone wants to hate Black people, it's their right to hate Black people.
Absolutely. They have a constitutional right to be a racist asshole. But okay, yes. But they do not have a right to then violate civil rights law or say, we're going to bring Jim Crow back to Georgia. They don't have that right.
Correct.
You can't compel speech, right? You can believe all those things. I say this to the left all the time. Stop trying to regulate human behavior. Focus on the laws, focus on people. Most people don't, I think, carry I don't think most people have the ability sometimes to realize there's a distinction of that. You know what I mean? It's not, It breaks my heart that people would be like, well, I remain a committed homophobic racist. That's terrible. But they have the right to be one.
They do.
100%. Absolutely. And that's
And
great.
it doesn't make me mad.
Not great. I shouldn't say great. Great. It's great that the freedom cuts both ways and allows you to do that. But right. The point though is but it would make you mad if they were proposing legislation that were discriminatory.
So right now, DEI is a big topic.
Yes. Diversity, education, and what's
equity,
the I? Diversity, equity, and what's the inclusion? Right. I never know what it is. Okay.
So, and what does this mean? This means that if you are Muslim, your employer must provide a place for you to worship during the day, right?
Okay.
Or even if you're in school and you're a Muslim, that is your religion, so you need the space to do that. Right. If you are Jewish, you do not have to go to school on some Jewish holidays. That is excused for you.
Yes.
Now, I am a Christian. And so my concern is, if I'm a Christian, why can't I read my Bible in the school? If someone can go pray, if someone can miss school, why? I don't like it when things are only in one direction.
I agree with you.
It should be in all directions.
Okay, but if you'll allow me, if I may, the teacher and the administrator cannot conduct any kind of biblical service under the Supreme Court. They can't.
I agree.
But I want to make sure that this is clear, because this is been said. I've heard it. I used to appear on Fox News, so I know this, and I've heard it, and it's a constant thing. Every child can pray in school. It can't be organized by the school. They can pray. You can read your Bible. You are allowed to read your Bible. It just cannot be read as a collective prayer by the administration. I just want to be clear. Somebody can read their Quran. Somebody can read their Old Testament. Somebody can read the words of the Eightfold Path that Buddha put forth. So just so you know that, it does go in both directions. I obviously, you can cite an instance where I can't believe this happened. Well, it shouldn't have happened either way, but you can read your Bible as a Christian. So that freedom is there. That's not something that's being taken away. It's being conflated with, well, Muslims can worship and Jews can. Everybody can worship. That's all. I think because Jews and Muslims were a minority. Jews and Muslims were a minority in a Christian country. Notifications, exceptions, and provisions were carved out to say, hey, just so you know, we have to make sure you can have a place to worship because you're in a minority religion, and you should have that. That's freedom of religion. So, but you're right. You should be able to read. I have no problem with that. As long as I don't have to abide by your Bible, read away.
Correct.
Freedom means freedom for everyone.
Yes. In every single sense of the word.
Yes, it does. Yes. So to finish off, though, we must finish off with your favorite person, Fani Wllis. Okay. So
she's not my favorite. Let me go.
No, I'm being sarcastic.
Funny, but I want to personally be on record.
I know, in case it gets made out of context. No, I'm being sarcastic. Come on. You're pro-emotion. Come on. Let's do it. No. Apart from the Trump indictment, you filed a RICO charge against her because why? What was this case about?
So I was the victim of stalking.
Okay.
And my stalker's attorney was a county commissioner, my county commissioner. Okay. And the county commissioners give the budget for the district attorneys. And in Atlanta, politics is very small. It's like a succession, which is part of the reason why we're in the state that we're in, because it's like political family after political family after political family. So the county commissioner, Fani Wllis, are friends. Okay? They are friends. He is my county commissioner, and he is also my stalker's attorney.
Yep.
At no point does Fani Wllis think that this is a conflict?
And it is a conflict. Yeah.
It is certainly a conflict. And there was a person inside the DA's office that contacted the news station, a popular news station here, and said, look, something is happening with Representative Mainor's case that you may want to investigate. And that led into a lot of things, and that ultimately led to me acquiring the jail tapes of my stalker.
Okay.
And lo and behold, on the jail tapes, the county commissioner, who's the attorney, on the jail call that says you're being recorded, decides to say, don't worry about anything. I've already spoken to Fani about it. She already knows about this bitch talking about me. So don't worry about it. I have it under control. Do you think Fani Wllis mentioned that? No. And once my stalking case came forward and I voiced publicly my disappointment in this, especially me being an elected representative, I am able to navigate the system the way I'm supposed to navigate the system. But navigating the system is extremely difficult, which means a layperson cannot navigate the system. You just don't get justice because you don't know how to navigate the system. Okay. So I filed RICO charges because I tried to do everything the way you were supposed to. I even filed an ethics complaint. But guess who? The county commissioners nominate the people on the ethics board.
Right.
So they threw the case out.
So that was the end of that.
Not quite. So I'm taking the case to state court. In federal court, the judge ultimately said, you have not proven that she violated your civil rights. I'm not saying that she did not do any of these things that you listed in your complaint. But what I am saying is this is not the courtroom to voice your complaint. And that was something my attorney and I knew going into it. It was hard to even find someone that would file a suit against, the county.
Right, of course. Right. So it's so convoluted and like kind of a snake pit,
Yes. And I'm not the only one. It's really the ultimate thing that I was trying to get the judge to see. It's multiple instances that deal directly with Fani Wllis and the county commissioner.
Right. And I know that you sided with the GOP before you had switched on this oversight commission to look at rogue local prosecutors that we spoke at the beginning. As we're taping this today on this Thursday, Governor Kemp came out this morning and said that he sees no reason at this point to be removing her and they're going to follow the Constitution. Does this present, I don't know if this comes because Georgia legislators or Georgia Republicans seem to want to remove her. Do you feel you have to recuse yourself in this instance? Or are you, because you already have, understandably, you have bad feelings here. I'm not denying that.
Yeah, yes, I would recuse myself, but I can say that if it was a special election, but there are hundreds of people that have lost their children to police violence.
Of course.
And prosecutors are not prosecuting those cases.
We have that in LA, this guy Gascon. We have a terrible situation here. Yeah.
And so I dedicated my vote on the House floor to several of those family members. I mentioned their names and I said, my vote is for these families that have lost their children. There are many ways that you technically can file grievances about a rogue DA. One is filing a bar complaint. Extremely difficult to do. You have to know the Bar Association's code to do that. So let's just say that's a negative. A special session. The GOP leadership in Georgia wants to be very careful about separating power of the executive branch, legislative branch, and the judicial branch. The third, now there's a prosecutor oversight bill. And this bill was in play way before Trump was even indicted.
Right.
This is its second generation of this bill that got passed. The original author was Representative Gullett. as soon as I got into office and I heard about his bill, I went to Representative Gullett and I said, hey, I want to support your bill.
Gullett's a Republican? Is that who? I don't know who that is.
Yes, he was a Republican. I was a freshman Democrat. And I said, this is very important. I want to support it.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, yes, there has been a tremendous frustration among citizens in a lot of cities, mainly blue cities, where prosecutors are not prosecuting criminals. So obviously you're having this. This is not only relational. This bill, like you said, came before the current situation with Fani Wllis, but she is the Fulton County DA, and so she has the jurisdiction to bring these charges that she's brought. I mean, before we go though, and I'm not here to change your mind, but you do know that Donald Trump did, okay, he did try to get those votes. He called Raffensperger, who resisted him, and Kemp has resisted him. And he has tried to pressure election officials and all sorts of people to get a lawful, free, and fair election overthrown. So it's not as if Fani Wllis, is that how you pronounce Fani? Has gone completely rogue here. I mean, you can disagree on whether it should be a RICO charge or not. I mean, there's been disagreements. I'm not an attorney, but I followed very closely. But it's not as if she's created something out of nothing on this. That doesn't mean she's prosecuted crime in Atlanta. That both things can be true, as we say on Dirty Modern.
I say this, when I saw January 6th happen in my bed,
yeah,
because I was just devastated. I had to just.
What's a horrific thing? I mean,
it brought tears.
A dark day. Yes.
It brought tears to my eyes. As far as President Donald Trump and DA Fani Wllis, I am agreeing with the GOP leadership that I am in the legislative branch, and it is not my place to comment on what's happening in the judicial branch.
Okay, fair point. But I have to press you on this. Will you vote? Will you on this, if it's brought before you, something specifically regarding Fani Wllis, they want to remove her, you'll either have to vote yay or nay or recuse yourself.
I said I would recuse myself.
On that vote. Okay. I think that's the honorable thing to do, because I think you're an honorable person, and I like what you stand for, and I do. And so and I'm saying this almost like my free political advice, because then you can say, look, I had a conflict, I recused myself, because also I know there's a good faith effort to want to support your idea that you had to go to a different party. We do have two parties because the party you were in was not commensurate anymore with your views, but that doesn't mean that all of a sudden you have to throw out everything you ever believed in just because, like you say, you have a different alphabet, different letter of the alphabet by your name. And by all accounts, you haven't. I mean, you seem like a very conscientious person, close to the ground, speaking to issues that that need to be spoken to, and you got to talk about racist police brutality, but you got to also talk about underserved communities of color that are getting left behind. Or like when your constituents call and say, don't defund the police. People who are arguing for defund the police are living in some penthouse in Buckshead or wherever the hell they are, and it doesn't affect them, just like the kids that don't have to go to public school and get left behind. And we have to be attentive to that. So I love the issues that you're focusing on, and I applaud you for doing it. Because there needs to be a voice who does it. And the Republican Party needs people of all colors, shapes, sizes, creeds, sexualities, because we only have two. And I still maintain, I can't go back on my own views, which is that there's been a moral and philosophical collapse because of Trumpism. I only hope that you represent the future of the Republican Party so it can renew itself as a viable alternative to the Democratic Party, which right now I don't think they are, but I applaud you. Maybe we'll all consider you a forerunner or pioneer a few years from now. We'll say, well, it's beginning at the state level, and there you are.
Well, I hope that your listeners, the independents, go to MeshaMainor.com.
Okay.
To support me if they feel like I'm making a position based on conviction values that they agree with, which is supporting children, supporting victims, and supporting safe communities.
Right. Well, it's hard to be against that. I'm certainly, as I keep saying, sympathetic, more than sympathetic, and right there with you. I really, first of all, again, want to thank you for coming on. I love having real discourse and dialogue that are respectful, civilized, and listen, we don't disagree on a lot of stuff, but there are things that I'm very curious about with you, and I'm going to watch you because I'd like to see you know, as I said, change is made in both parties, and I hope, you know, you, as I said, you can begin that on the Republican side. And of course, I wish you great good luck, because I want your constituents to be served well, and I know you care about that. And you're up in 2024, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, we'll be watching you. Representative Mainor, thank you for being on Dirty I think you're a dirty moderate. How about that? Would you accept that label?
I would. I like the theme music.
All right. We're going to hear it right now because we're out. But thank you for joining us. Come back and see us anytime, okay?
Thanks.
Thank you.